Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul is happening. I was kind of knocked off, just kind of shocked, stunned when I saw the promotional fight poster in my Instagram stories and my Instagram posts feed, should I say, the other day. I was really surprised. Well, not too surprised, but I think Tyron Woodley was really, gunning to fight this guy. Likewise, Jake Paul was. So, and it looks like everything kind of fell into place, kind of like at the right time. Jake Paul beat Ben Askren. Ben Askren's good friends with Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley has just been released from the UFC. He's lost all 4 of his most recent fights. And, the UFC were looking for, I'm sure they were going to come soon anyway, either who's going to be cut or who's going to retire. He's 39, nearly 40 years old. So who's going to win this? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Tyron Woodley's going to win hands down. I mean, Tyron Woodley, I think, in comparison to all of the other opponents that Jake Paul has fought in his last 3 fights, including Ben Askren. I mean, Ben Askren was probably the worst one because Ben Askren basically was known for being a really, really bad. I like Ben Askren. I respect him a lot. Ben Askren is known for his really poor striking, good wrestling, but unfortunately in boxing, wrestling doesn't count. So, I think Tyron Woodley would probably be a proper true test for Jake Paul because Tyron Woodley is good with his hand. He's good with his striking. He's known for his knockout power. So, this will probably be the closest thing to a proper boxing match that Jake Paul will ever have, at least for now, or for now will have, So, for me, there's something else that also struck my interest and aroused my suspicion. It was the fact that I also, was it rumor? No, it wasn't rumor. It was rumored. It's a fact that Jake Paul he demanded to have a rematch clause included in the contract. Rematch clause, of course, for most of you who don't know, I'll just briefly run through it. It is basically whereby 2 opponents in a box match, I think, to either one opponent or both of them, they want to have whoever wins or loses gets to face his opponent again in another boxing match, and whoever wins or loses that fight, that's when and that's the score is settled then. Now, when I heard about that, I was thinking to myself, why would Jake Paul go and do this? Because, Tyron Woodley could also demand the same thing as well. Tyron Woodley, for him, I think the biggest advantage here is just the money side of things. Most mixed martial arts athletes, especially those in the UFC, they are notoriously and badly, really badly paid. That's nothing new. So I think that's probably the biggest advantage and the biggest benefit that Tyron Woodley has where this boxing match is concerned. So for me, from what I could see, Tyron Woodley wasn't the one who demanded the rematch clause in the contract. It came from the side of Jake Paul. And when I heard that, I thought to myself, well, why would Jake Paul want to have a rematch clause in this contract? He didn't include it in, he didn't include it or didn't mention it at all with Ben Askren or KSI or the other opponent that he fought with, who was also another YouTuber. So I thought to myself, okay, if that's the case, I think a rematch clause for most people, at least for myself, speaking as a fight fan, the way I understand it, okay, there's what it does. You whether you lose or win the fight, you're gonna have to fight the opponent again. But if you are requesting a rematch clause, then it kind of suggests to me that maybe you know that the first time around you're going to lose to this opponent. There's a strong potential, there's a strong chance that you are going to come out the loser and not the successor in this competition. So that being the case, I'm sure that the reason why Jake Paul probably why he demanded rather to have that clause included in his contract was because he probably can see that this is an opponent who is very different to all the last 3 opponents that he's competed with, he's boxed against, that he's fought with. And this is someone who's very good with their hands. Their striking is really, really good. Their knockout capability is one of the things that they're known for, one of their trademark moves. So all of that being said and done, this is someone, of course, who also means business. They don't like, on top of everything, that they know this is a competition. They know this is, what happens in the ring stays in the ring. But on top of that, this individual does not like me. They really do not like me at all. And they don't hold back. They're very vocal about that. they make it clear for everybody to see, for everybody to know. So that aroused my suspicions when I keep kind of getting tongue twisted, when I heard about the rematch clause being demanded to be added to Jake Paul's contract, or to the contracts of the boxing match. So that kind of does probably let people know that, even though, I personally believe that Jake Paul has asked for that as a safety net, and also to save face, that if he does lose the first time around, then he has another chance again the second time around to still win, and probably still have an opportunity to run his mouth and to be just as disrespectful, and to call other members out, or other members of the mixed martial arts community out to come and box, and to insult them even further. Of course, it could go the other way. He could lose the first fight, and he could also lose the second fight, which if he loses on the second time, it'll be far more humiliating and far more embarrassing for him. And someone like Jake Paul cares so much about his image. For me, all these YouTubers, and I think the same probably goes for Logan Paul, but Logan Paul is, at the very least, at least he's not as annoying as his younger brother is. It's a bit more tolerable. The reason why Jake Paul has already done this is to save face, and to save face as much as he can, because even though he's demanded to have that clause included in his contract, there's always a possibility that he could lose the first fight. Okay, fine. The rematch clause kind of covers his back a little bit. It kind of covers his ass a little bit and saves him partially. But again, even though you're given a second chance, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to win the fight. So for me personally, my own opinion, that's the reason why he's demanded to have this clause, and he's demanded to have this. What should I say? This extra, say, benefit or advantage added to the contract should things go the other way. Should things go against him, not in his favor, and rather in the favor of his opponent, Tyron Woodley. Because again, Tyron Woodley is someone who is going to be a much more seasoned combat sports athlete in comparison to Jake Paul's last three opponents. After Tyron Woodley, I think probably you could say Ben Askren, but Ben Askren, unfortunately, the biggest disadvantage he had, and I saw that boxing match, it ended in less than half of the time allowed for the first round. It just looked ridiculous. He didn't even look like he was in athletic shape for the boxing match. No disrespect to Ben Askren, but the performance was what it was. So I think Jake Paul's also got into this using some common sense, that he knows that in a way he's punching above his weight, and Tyron Woodley still has, despite the last four fights that he lost in the UFC, the losing streak that he's coming off in the UFC, despite his age, despite all the negatives that is attached to his name in terms of mixed martial arts at the moment, Tyron Woodley still is a far more seasoned athlete, far more seasoned combat sports athlete than any of the three opponents that Jake Paul has faced in the past before he's going to compete against Tyron Woodley. So I think he's done that. He's gone into that. He's gone into this with using some common sense, some smarts, just to make sure that he's protected as much as possible. But again, a rematch clause doesn't necessarily save you from losing. It doesn't necessarily, mean that the fight's going to go your way. The fight again could go the other way. You could lose in the second time, and again, the situation will be made even worse for you, especially in his own case, because if Jake Paul loses this match, like I said with the Ben Askren fight, if he loses this match, he has a lot more to lose than his opponent does. So his opponent is an accomplished athlete already. He's already cemented his name. He's an established figure. He's an established figure, an established name in the sports of mixed martial arts, especially because he's been fighting in the UFC. So I just want to put that out there, because I really do hope that Tyron Woodley does beat this guy and just shut him up. And because it's still gonna be some time between now and the end of August. We're now just entering the month of July. It's now the 4th of July. We're now just entering the month of June. It's now the 4th of June 2021. So it's about July. It's still okay. So about two 2 months or 2.5 months or so before the fight takes place. And I say for now that day because between now and then, a lot of things could happen. Jake Paul could get cold feet. One of them could go through some sort of difficulty or whatever, and the fight could be called off or it could be postponed. So, but again, we'll just wait and see what happens. But I believe that Jake Paul will be KO'd by, will be knocked out nicely and smoothly by Tyron Woodley, very easily by Tyron Woodley. And I mean, who knows if he's still gonna want to compete into the second boxing match, if that rematch clause remains as it is on the contract. So looking at the stats, Jake Paul's has a slight height advantage of 6'1", whereas Tyron Woodley is at 5'9", and again, Paul has the advantage in terms of the reaching power, 76 inches, and Woodley has a reach of 74 inches. So overall, and yeah, again, there's the age. Jake Paul is 24, 25 years old, and Tyron Woodley is 39, he's almost 40 years old. Still, I mean, but I know in terms of sports, mixed martial arts and combat sports is a young man's game. So when you hit a certain age, of course, things such as your recovery, your agility, athleticism, those things will unfortunately be compromised. They are going to decline. But still, I mean, even Tyron Woodley at his age, that's still not necessarily an old age. But I do understand in sports, especially in combat sports, that is the time whereby where people say you can't really cheat or beat Father Time. So yeah, I'm not going to say much else about this. Just praying and hoping. Well, not hoping, but no, I know Tyron Woodley is definitely going to go in there and beat this guy's ass. And I think Floyd Mayweather has offered to help train Tyron Woodley to compete against Jake Paul, and also, who's the other guy? Jorge Masvidal, game-bred fighter, has also joined Tyron Woodley in his coaching and training to prepare for the boxing match. So, but all in all, let's wait and see what happens. It's not just the fact that they're waiting to see what happens in the boxing match, but let's see what happens in the run-up to the boxing match itself, because it's still at least 1 or 2 months in between. So, there's still a lot to happen between now and then. So, yeah, so for the next UFC event, UFC Vegas 29, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's just from my predictions, from what I can see, it's just 2 fights really that really have got my attention there, and those 2 fights, they are, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Augusto Sakai. So back at UFC Vegas 20, now I remember how this guy fought against Cyril Gane. It looks, just looking at it, he looks quite boring. His stand up wasn't doing much. Almost like he was waiting and waiting and waiting for the perfect moment to just launch an attack. And unfortunately, Cyril Gane was just taking the advantage and seizing the opportunities for most of the fight, and just launching his own attacks. And Rozenstruik was more or less just kind of standing there, pacing backwards and forwards. As I made in my notes, and I think he overdid this, and that's probably the reason why he lost. He didn't really push himself to land enough shots and attacks effectively as much as possible. I do appreciate that in the fighting, of course, you've got to be smart of how you go about your attacks and go about your defenses. But at the same time, unfortunately, it's a fight game. Whether you're defending yourself or you're launching an attack, your opponent's going to be doing the same thing, because you both want one thing. You both want one thing, and that is to win. And you both don't want the other thing, and that is to lose. So, in that fight, I hope in this fight when he fights Augusto Sakai, and looking at Sakai's last fight against Alistair Overeem at UFC Vegas 29, he did look a bit, okay, this is my opinion from what I could see, how he handled himself. His stand-up looks almost not too different to Rozenstruik's, but I mean, his stand-up did look a bit better. My hand when I can't even understand it sometimes. So it did look like after some time he did move in and get close enough to launch an attack. But again, he lost that fight by TK, and this was against Alistair Overeem at UFC Vegas number 9. But so both these guys, their most recent fights, they lost. So hopefully, it'll be an interesting matchup. Would it be interesting? Would I find it boring? I'll give it a chance. But I mean, I don't know who's gonna win or who's gonna lose. So for this one, I'll be honest, I'm on the fence. So for the other guys, Roman Dolidze versus Loreno Staropoli, the middleweight. Now, what really grabbed my attention about these two guys is that I think one of them has like a ton of wins and just one loss. And I can't remember who, and I can't really get it on my computer right now. It's just going to spoil the image of the podcast if you're watching this on YouTube. So Dolidze, I'm just calling his first name. Roman's first, not first, but his last fight against Trevin Giles back at UFC Vegas 22. Stand-up looked decent. His clinch and ground game looked, for the brief takedowns, they looked pretty good. And also, what I noticed is on the ground, and it's something that I don't think I really noticed this with any other fight mixed martial arts fighter that I've watched recently in the past. He seems really flexible on the ground with his legs. When his opponent's trying to hold him down on the ground, he manages to move his legs around, so it makes it difficult for his opponent to mount him and launch an attack, or to at least just keep him in place, hold him down, try and control him. While his opponent, Loreno Staropoli, his stand-up looked good, and he does seem a lot quicker on his feet. Now, who do I think will win out of these two guys? Probably, I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Roman, because with ground game, if his opponent tries to take him down in a takedown, I think he's gonna make it very difficult, really, really difficult to keep him down on the ground. So it'll be hard for his opponent to get Roman into a submission. That's the reason why I think Roman may have the advantage here. I mean, I said before that I think stand-ups are a lot easier than takedowns and ground game. So, again, that's why I think that Roman will have the advantage over his opponent, over Staropoli. So, moving on to something which is still kind of rearing its ugly head in the mixed martial arts world. Yes, the Joshua Fabia, Diego Sanchez controversy, the whole scandal thing. Recently Diego Sanchez came out with a statement, and he said that trying to address the OnlyFans situation, that everything that happened on there had nothing to do with him. Basically, it was down to Joshua Fabia, and also involved Joshua Fabia's assistant Rebecca, whoever she is. I've not seen a picture of her and what she looks like, nothing like that. I just wonder what sorts of person would like to work for someone like Joshua Fabia. I mean, it's mind-boggling, and it's crazy. An assistant, for that matter, as well. So, So what's happened is that he just confirmed they had nothing to do with him. It was just basically down to Joshua Fabia and his assistant. And I think, again, he had nothing bad to say about these guys, didn't shit on them, didn't attack them verbally, didn't slander them on the internet or on any of these social media platforms, and nothing like that at all. Actually said, whatever happens, I hope you two are okay. I just wish, more or less in his statement, he said, I wish nothing but the best for you two guys. So it shows he's being the bigger person, he's taking the higher ground, and that is good, because the way Joshua Fabia treated this guy was it was disgusting. And he further confirmed that while he was with Joshua Fabia actually took over the management of all of his social media and all of his his online activities. Joshua Fabia was handling that, so that had nothing to do with him at all. The OnlyFans thing. And speaking of OnlyFans, it is I'll say rumored because I've only seen like one source about this case, about the amount of money that this OnlyFans generated online. And I saw it was a YouTube video. I can't remember the channel. I think is it. No, I'm not gonna say the name just in case I get it wrong. So it's rumored that the OnlyFans account managed to pick up about approximately 90,000 subscribers, 90,000 followers, and it generated $1.4 million, about $1.5 million. So it's a crazy amount of money. And Joshua Fabia kept half of that. He kept half of it. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot more stuff that's going to be coming out about that he's going to be releasing and letting slip through the cracks. Just let people, just extra information come up, because I'm sure he loves the limelight. He's that narcissical. And I actually checked the number of people following him on Instagram, his personal page, on his personal account on Instagram, and I remember explicitly in detail, because I said before that I wanted to invite him onto my show to just speak to him about things that have been happening, get his side of the story, because so far a lot of the sources online on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook, on Twitter, they all seem to be painting him as a villain. So I wanted to get his side of the story, speak to him, get the information from the horse's mouth, give him an opportunity to shed light on the situation, give him an opportunity to say his part, to say his truth. I'm trying to look for the proper way to say that. Just give him an opportunity to defend himself and to explain himself, basically. Yeah, that sort of thing. And he said yes at first. Then later on, I kind of contacted him again to ask him to see if he was still interested, after the whole thing about had kind of changed, whereby Diego Sanchez had actually cut ties, and Fabia gone into that podcast behind the scenes. I asked him again, would you like to come on? He said not at this time, and that's more or less the last I heard from him. So yeah, I'm sure there's still going to be some more information to come out from this thing. I think there's one or two YouTubers who are actually following the story really closely. So again, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And again, I was talking about the Instagram thing. His account, the number of people following him. The last time I checked, before checking again today, before making this podcast, it was approximately 680 to about 700 followers he had on there. Now that number has dropped to just below 500. So I think there's something going on with this Joshua Fabia. And now that Diego Sanchez is thankfully and safely, happily out of the picture, just away from him, I'm sure a lot more things going to be coming out that will expose him for what he truly is. I personally believe that he's running a cult, because if you just look at the things he does, it's really with self-awareness. He seems to be the least self-aware person you can ever come across, or that you ever meet in your life, and lots of just dumb things that are really relevant, not just to mixed martial arts, but just to anything in life. They're just so unhelpful and so useless. But guys, I'm going to wrap that up. Again, I'm sorry for being so tongue twisted and just good. Yeah, you're not being able to put a proper sentence together. Normally I don't speak like this at all. Don't know why it keeps happening when I'm making a podcast, but I try to stop that. Guys, if you did enjoy this podcast, please don't forget to leave a like down below if you're watching on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy my content. You can listen to my podcast on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and on Google Podcasts. You can catch me on Twitter and on Facebook. My name is Ike Ojako, and on Instagram my name is Ike Ojako1. Thanks again, guys.